It is 3 a.m. and somewhere in Palm Beach, Florida, an 82-year-old retired schoolteacher is staring at her laptop screen in the dark, refreshing her bank account page over and over, because the number that was there yesterday, $2.1 million, her entire life savings, 40 years of teaching, is now showing a balance of $0. She calls the bank hotline and a recorded voice tells her that Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities LLC is under federal investigation and all accounts have been frozen. She does not scream, she does not cry, she just sits there in the blue glow of the laptop, perfectly still, because her brain cannot process that everything she worked for has vanished like a magic trick. And it was a magic trick, the most expensive magic trick in human history, $65 billion gone. How did one single man steal $65 billion from over 40,000 people, including banks, celebrities, charities, and Holocaust survivors, without anyone noticing for 17 years? Today we are going to crack open the biggest financial scam ever pulled off on American soil, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at your investments the same way again. Let me introduce you to the magician. Bernie Madoff was not some shady guy running a scam out of a garage. He was the former chairman of the NASDAQ stock exchange, one of the most powerful positions in all of American finance. He wore $5,000 suits, had a penthouse on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, a mansion in Palm Beach, a yacht in the French Riviera, and a private jet. Wall Street royalty, senators, and Hollywood celebrities all begged him to take their money. Steven Spielberg invested through the Wonder Kinder Foundation. Kevin Bacon and Kyra Sedgwick handed over their savings. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Elie Wiesel's charity lost $15.2 million. And Sandy Koufax, one of baseball's greatest pitchers, was on the list too. But his secret weapon was not glamour, and it was not connections. His secret weapon was a perfectly straight line. You see, the normal stock market goes up and down like a roller coaster. One year you are up 20%, the next year you are down 15%. And that is just how markets work. But Madoff's fund reported steady returns of about 10 to 12% every single year after year, no matter what the market did. In 2001, when the dot-com bubble burst and the S&P 500 dropped 13%, Madoff reported a gain. In 2002, when the market fell another 23%, Madoff reported a gain. It was a perfectly smooth, perfectly straight line going up, and that line was the most beautiful lie ever drawn on a piece of paper. He called his strategy the split strike conversion, a real options trading technique that involves buying stocks, selling call options above, and buying put options below to create a collar. It sounds complicated, and that was the entire point, because if you do not understand how something works, you tend to trust the person who claims they do, especially if that person used to run NASDAQ. But here is the truth. Madoff never made a single trade. Not one. He took every dollar his investors gave him and deposited it into a single checking account at JPMorgan Chase, account number ending in 703. When a new investor gave him $10 million, he did not buy stocks, he just typed a fake trade into a computer and printed a fake statement showing a 10% gain. When an old investor wanted to withdraw money, Madoff simply paid them using the cash from the newest investors. Think of it like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. As long as you keep pouring water in from the top faster than it drains out the bottom, the bucket looks full. But the moment people stop pouring, or worse, everyone tries to take their water out at the same time, the bucket is instantly empty. This is called a Ponzi scheme, named after Charles Ponzi, who ran a similar scam with postal stamps in 1920. And it is the oldest trick in the book. So how did nobody catch him for 17 years? That is actually the most terrifying part of this entire story. A financial analyst named Harry Markopolos figured out Madoff was a fraud in 1990 after spending just 5 minutes looking at his return data. Markopolos ran the numbers and concluded it was mathematically impossible to generate those returns using the strategy Madoff claimed. He went to the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the agency whose entire job is to catch exactly this kind of fraud. He filed a detailed complaint in 2000, then again in 2001, then again in 2005, then again in 2007, each time with more evidence, more math, more proof. The SEC ignored him every single time. They investigated Madoff twice and found nothing, partly because they did not understand the math, and partly because Madoff's name carried so much weight on Wall Street that nobody wanted to believe it. Markopolos later testified before Congress and said the SEC was, quote, a 3,500-person agency where nobody even understood basic derivatives. For nearly a decade, one man was screaming the truth into a void, and the system designed to protect you shrugged and looked the other way. Meanwhile, the money machine kept growing. Madoff did not just take money from individuals, he used feeder funds, third-party firms that collected money from thousands of smaller investors and funneled it all into Madoff's account. The biggest was Fairfield Greenwich Group, which sent him $7.5 billion and charged their own investors a 1% management fee plus 20% of profits. Profits that never actually existed. Fairfield made hundreds of millions in fees for doing nothing more than handing your money to a con man. Then came September 2008. Lehman Brothers collapsed. The housing market imploded, the global financial system was on fire, and terrified investors started calling Madoff demanding their money back. In the first week of December 2008 alone, Madoff received $7 billion in withdrawal requests. The bucket was finally empty. On December 10, 2008, Madoff called his two sons, Mark and Andrew, into his apartment and told them the truth, that the investment advisory business was, in his words, one big lie and basically a giant Ponzi scheme. His sons called the FBI that same night. The next morning, federal agents knocked on Madoff's door at his penthouse, and he answered in his bathrobe and said, quote, "There is no innocent explanation." He was arrested on the spot. The fallout was catastrophic. Over 40,000 victims across 44 countries lost a combined $65 billion in fabricated wealth, with actual cash losses estimated at $17.5 billion. The Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity, run by a man who survived the Holocaust, lost its entire $15.2 million endowment. A French investor named Thierry de la Villehuche, who had funneled European money into Madoff's fund, was found dead in his Manhattan office with his wrists slashed. Madoff's own son Mark was found hanged in his apartment on December 11, 2010, exactly 2 years after his father's arrest, with his 2-year-old son sleeping in the next room. His other son Andrew died of lymphoma in 2014 at age 48, a disease his family believed was worsened by the unbearable stress. On June 29, 2009, Judge Denny Chen sentenced Bernie Madoff to the maximum 150 years in federal prison. The courtroom erupted in applause. Madoff died in prison on April 14, 2021, at age 82, the same age as many of the retirees he destroyed. But the recovery effort has been remarkable. Trustee Irving Picard spent 17 years tracking down money through hundreds of lawsuits, and as of February 2000, he has recovered nearly $15.38 billion for Madoff's customers. The DOJ's Madoff Victim Fund completed its 10th and final distribution in December 2004, bringing total payouts to over $4.3 billion. Meaning over 40,000 victims recovered approximately 93.7% of their proven cash losses. But money recovered does not mean lives recovered. The school teacher in Palm Beach, the charity workers, the retirees who had to go back to work at age 75, their trust in the system was shattered, and no check can fix that. So what is the lesson from the biggest scam in American history? First, if an investment promises consistent returns with no risk, run. The stock market is volatile by nature, and anyone claiming they have eliminated that volatility is either lying or about to be. Second, never put all your eggs in one basket, no matter how golden that basket looks. Diversification across multiple funds, brokers, and asset classes is not just smart, it is survival. Third, demand transparency. Madoff's victims never asked to see actual trade confirmations from a third-party custodian because his reputation made the question feel rude. Being polite cost them everything. Fourth, remember that the SEC, the very agency created to protect you, failed spectacularly and was warned for a decade. You cannot outsource the safety of your life savings to a government agency. You have to stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay involved. Ponzi schemes did not die with Madoff. The SEC brought 313 enforcement cases in fiscal year 2025, with fraud remaining the top priority, and crypto-related Ponzi schemes are now the fastest-growing category. The bucket with a hole trick is still being run today, just with shinier paint and fancier apps. If this story made you rethink how you look at your own money, hit that subscribe button because we break down these hidden financial traps every single week. Drop a comment telling me what shocked you the most. Was it the SEC ignoring warnings for 10 years? The fake JPMorgan checking account? Or the fact that $65 billion was never invested at all? I will see you in the next one.